fishing. I'm so hungry.
All right, that's fine. All right, we're live. We're live.
So, I could suggest this, and it is tied to Push, which is what Precious is based off of. It's the second part of Precious, essentially.
The second part?
Push is what the book is based off of, and then that's the second part. A lot of people talk about Precious, but they don't really talk about sci-fi.
Oh, all right. Hey, I'm Misty. Hey, Ma. We'll give it a couple of minutes, guys. And then I will get to it. Hey. How was Christmas? All right. The best that we can do in the panoramic. Oh, man. Man, as an adult, it still is hot. It still is hard to drink hot drinks. Oh. All right. Oh, man, let me go grab my watch. I'll be right back. I realize I don't have any way of looking at the time. All right. Let me see. Let me make sure I got everything set for y'all. All right, just a couple of things, y'all. Fruity, Mom. I'm just a fan of colors. So, as mentioned, today we're going to go ahead and read the second half of Why Do We Have to Say Black Lives Matter? Just a reminder, because, we've read a couple of books on the way, read a couple of books since last time. So far, the Ellises have found a time machine. They're talking about why Black Lives Matter. You can see, DeVal's talking to his kids about how important history was and getting really into why we say Black Lives Matter. And they have recently just hit their first stage where they really started talking about the history. So got your spaceship. Meow. Then we're gonna pick up at Black Codes. Oh, a couple more minutes. As a reminder, guys, whatever books that you guys would like to hear me read, any types, let me know. We want to make sure that we're shedding light and making this a platform for Black authors. So, not ruling out any of the other kids' books, but we would prefer to have some children's books by Black authors. Feel free to comment, recommend, whatever you guys want to send. Feel free. All right. And we're going to get started with the second part. Why do we say Black Lives Matter? And shout out to my son Rob for the bookmarks. It's on the way. All right. So, Black Codes. Although the Confederate South lost the Civil War, its leaders waged a political war on the freedom of Black people. In the late 1865 into 1866, Southern states like Mississippi and South Carolina began enforcing laws which made it mandatory for Blacks to work under labor contracts and carry written documentation. Newly freed Southern Blacks were at risk of being arrested and getting into forced labor again. They were not allowed to vote, carry weapons for protection, gather in groups for worship, or learn how to read or write. Although northern and western states did not enforce the exact laws, many discouraged free Blacks from residing there. Kind of a big deal. Yes, we were free and they did start the Emancipation Proclamation, but we went from one type of slavery and bondage to another. They made it harder for us to excel. Jim Crow. During the Reconstruction era, the former Confederate states created laws that demanded separate public spaces based on race. These spaces included restrooms, restaurants, schools, libraries, and public transportation. In 1896, the U.S. Supreme Court used the Plessy versus Ferguson case to uphold the separate but equal doctrine after the Reconstruction era. The facilities for blacks were rarely equal, as the majority were either underfunded, inhumane, or non-existent. In fact, many public places in the South refused to create separate accommodations for blacks or refused them access altogether. Racial segregation by Jim Crow laws were considered constitutional until they were overruled by the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It's the same when you think about how they had like it was 1866 when they had started. They said that black people were free, but we really were still fighting until 1964 to really have those same rights. You know, they made it seem like separate but equal was something that would benefit us, but it's more so like you look at our school systems now, the difference between the public and the private. You have better options, you have cleaner water, you have better school systems. But because you have access to it, that's why I thought it was good enough for us. Keep fighting, y'all. Never satisfied. The Ku Klux Klan. In the mid-1860s, the KKK formed to prevent black people from gaining political power and sought to suppress their rights. The group upheld white supremacy by using voter intimidation and targeting violence towards blacks, now known as African Americans. The secret organization was composed of Southern white men and often wore white robes, face masks, and burned crosses to evoke intimidation. Man, scary stuff. You know, we were given the option still to go and vote, but they still made it hard to do so. It was a fear that was created. And I believe, well, we believe in most cases in this household, that fear is passed down. So get out there and vote. Still, you have to make changes. But that's the reason why they make it so hard for us to vote. It's a lot of power you got. Convict leasing. Many Southern leaders in government and in business wanted to find a new way to make money after chattel slavery in 1865. As slavery was now illegal, several states used the Vagrancy Act and other black codes to imprison free black people, forcing them to work for free as prisoners in the southern states. Convict leasing existed in America under different names until it was abolished on December 12, 1942. And we still believe that, you know, the prison system still uses black people majority for free labor. No, they get paid like 25 cents a day. The Tulsa Race Massacre. Although many free black people struggled to rebuild their lives after slavery, some got their footing. O.W. Gurley, a black landowner, educator, and entrepreneur, built the Greenwood Business District, known as Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He supported other black entrepreneurs to develop Black Wall Street over 15 years as a beautiful community filled with homes, businesses, and schools. On Memorial Day weekend 1921, Black Wall Street experienced an event it would never recover from. It all started when Sarah Page, a white woman operating the elevator, screamed after Dick Rowland, a young black man, entered the elevator. Rumors and accusations of sexual assault escalated during the police investigation, and an outraged armed mob of white people rioted Black Wall Street. As many as 300 black people died, over 800 were injured, and the 35 city blocks were burned to the ground. Sadly, this event has been left out of many American history books. And that's a fact. Because these were a bunch of black people who had accumulated land and property that they didn't have the need for white people. So we look at how much a black dollar circulates the community now. It lasts anywhere between 6 to 8 hours. By us having that entire community, we were able to keep that money in our community, and everybody wasn't a fan of it. Redlining. In 1934, during the Great Depression, the National Housing Act was enacted to address housing instability. The Federal Housing Administration was established to launch a mortgage insurance program, which consequently led to further segregation and gaps in fair opportunities between white and black communities. The new housing market provided more housing and neighborhood improvements for white, middle class, and lower middle class families, while pushing black families into urban housing projects. Additionally, housing credit for mortgages in black neighborhoods was often denied. Special benefits were extended to real estate developers who were building neighborhoods for white Americans with the understanding that no homes could be sold to black people. This promoted segregation and contributed to the wealth gap seen today. Police brutality. In 1954, during the Civil Rights Movement, black Americans began experiencing extreme physical violence at the hands of local police. These attacks were photographed and caught on camera while protesters demonstrated nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience. Local governments often militarized their police forces against nonviolent black protesters using water hoses, dogs, batons, and excessive force that resulted in physical assaults, numerous arrests, and deaths. You see how they caught in the background? I think that's part of the reason why we really aren't fans of German Shepherds. Because with all of the black history facts and everything that we currently have, we always saw us getting blasted by the water hose and being attacked by the dogs. Women, kids, and men alike. The Black Panther Party, after decades of using civil disobedience and nonviolent protests to combat racial injustices and police brutality, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was created by college students, Bobby Seale and Huey Newton, in 1966. The core purposes of this group was to empower and protect black neighborhoods against police brutality. In response to the Black Panther Party, the U.S. FBI Director, J. Edgar Hoover, led and developed a program called CONTILPRO to discredit and criminalize the party. CONTILPRO was a counterintelligence program responsible for causing major internal conflicts within the party and the assassination of many influential party leaders like Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. There's power in you guys being unified. They realized it. The war on drugs. In 1971, just a few years after the end of segregation and gaining the right to vote during the Civil Rights Movement, President Richard Nixon announced the war on drugs. This national initiative used both federal and local law enforcement to target black Americans and leaders by disrupting and over-policing their communities. In 1986, Congress passed the Anti-Drug Abuse Act, providing funds for more militarized police forces in black communities and harsher sentences for drug-related crimes. This created soaring arrest rates for black people. Mass incarceration. Although slavery ended 131 years earlier and segregation 29 years prior, many black people struggled to thrive after the Civil Rights Movement because of redlining, police brutality, and federal legislations that continued to target and terrorize black communities. In 1994, the largest crime bill in the history of the United States was passed. The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act. This bill was created a surge in the number of arrests of black men and women. They were given harsher sentences while private companies began profiting from the prison industrial complex. That type of thing matters. As an example in Toledo, right down the street from the high school, you have your prison. It isn't a coincidence. Black Lives Matter. In July 2013, the Black Lives Matter movement was created by Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and Partis Colors, after the state of Florida failed to convict the murderer of an unarmed 17-year-old black boy, Trayvon Martin. Using the state's stand your ground law, the Black Lives Matter movement mobilizes where youth meet most, on social media, and is a declaration to revolt against police brutality and a corrupt criminal justice system that profiles, targets, profits off of, and oftentimes kills black Americans without consequence. Hey, babe, said Kadeen. I think it's time to get back. Okay, Ellises. Time to go back, said Duval. The family put on their glasses, and Duval hit the red button. A huge white flash appeared, and the Ellises were instantly home. It's like the Men in Black thing. Now, back in Jackson's room, after a journey that covered over 400 years, Duval said, "So you see, we say Black Lives Matter to remind America that they forgot about us when they said, with liberty and justice for all. So all we are asking for is equality, right, Pops?" asked Jackson. "Yeah, bro. It's crazy that we still have to ask for it," said Duval. Jackson runs to open his closet. "Hey, where you going?" asked Kadeen. "The history lesson is over. You don't want to finish watching the game with your dad?" "Are you kidding me? We need to change. We need change, and I can't change anything while watching the game. We need action," exclaimed Jackson. "Yeah," said Cairo. "Yeah," said Cass, speaking for the first time. Jackson pushed his mom and dad out of his room and closed the door. "Do you think I share too much?" Duval asked Kadeen. "Not at all. If they're anything like you, they'll work together to change the world for the better," said Kadeen, and she gave Duval a warm hug. "We got work to do, gentlemen," said Jackson. "Yeah!" screamed Cairo and Chaz in unison. That was a good one, guys. That was a good one. So, that book was Why We Have to Say Black Lives Matter by the Ellises and the Time Machine. Thanks, Mom. That one was donated by my mother. Really important book. I think that it's important for us to have conversations with our kids going forward about everything that they'll be walking into. You know, obviously one of the biggest challenges as parents that we're faced with is preparing our kids to go out into the world and deal with it while we're here and also when we're not. So, you know, I challenge you all to have that conversation. Yeah, thank you for it. So, today, our adults book is The Kid Sapphire. This book was written by, this one's called Sapphire, written by The Kid. This one was recommended by my wife. This book, from my understanding, is the first part of Precious. You know, we like to talk about the book Precious, talk about Precious in the story in general, but nobody likes to talk about Push. So, from her words, she said it's a really good book. You guys go ahead and check it out. But other than that, thank you guys for coming, tuning in to watch my live reading. If there's any books or anything that you guys come across, feel free to let me know. I'd love to check them out. If you guys would like to donate any books, we're open to that as well. Other than that, you guys have a great new year and be safe.